The best Game Week 27 FPL captains. My name is Benji, and last week we backed Mo Salah at the Etihad. He returned a fat 28-pointer. It's becoming almost scary to go against him when he's in this kind of form, but this week's captain's shortlist has a few tasty fixtures on offer. Let's get into it. Thinking Cap activated. Straight into the rankings review, and I'm happy we nailed first place. It's always the most important thing for me to get right every week, but Isak in third did outscore Cole Palmer in second place. 3 of last week's candidates have retained their spots on the shortlist. Remember, people, it's a Tuesday deadline, so do not forget to set your teams. Son and Foden face off at 7:30 this Wednesday, but for most of us, there's only 2 main options: Salah versus Newcastle at home or Palmer versus Southampton at home. For me, the promoted teams this year have been even worse than the 3 that came up last year, and Palmer's well known for being a flat track bully. In 2 home starts against promoted teams, he smashed a combined 29 points. Yes, Palmer did blank twice this season against the current crop of promoted teams, away to Leicester and Ipswich earlier in the campaign, but he's maintained a flawless record at Stamford Bridge so far. Unfortunately, Salah also has a very, very good home record versus Newcastle, returning in every league start at home to Newcastle, producing double-digit returns in 43% of those starts. Salah's consistent and he's explosive, and that's what his points history shows. It's just as impressive as Palmer's, and because he started way more games, his dataset is a little more trustworthy, and so he gets the edge heading into opponent analysis. There's no question Cole Palmer has the best fixture on offer in Game Week 27. Southampton's defensive numbers are terrible, and on top of that, their defense will be without a few key players. On Tuesday, Jan Bednarek went off injured after just 12 minutes against Brighton. Juric said post-match that Bednarek's a doubt for Chelsea. Harwood Bellis has also been out with an ankle injury for a few weeks. He's also a big doubt for Chelsea. So that's both of Southampton's starting centre halves missing for the Chelsea game. And although they aren't very good themselves, it's clear based off the Brighton and Bournemouth games that Southampton's other options aren't much better, if not worse. And that's not all. Ugachukwu, who started 3 in the last 4 for the Saints in at CDM, he's on loan from Chelsea and therefore ineligible to play on Tuesday. Centre-backs out. Number 6 out, and there's a chance that one of the center backs plays out of position. Without Ugachukwu, Juric will probably put Aribo back into the midfield instead of starting him at center back, which he did last game. Look, I understand Chelsea aren't in a great place at the moment. They're not performing well, missing a few key players in the form of Nico Jackson and Romeo Lavia, but this Southampton team is on its knees, and for me, the appeal of this fixture greatly outweighs any concerns over recent Chelsea performances. Newcastle's defensive numbers rank inside the top 10 in the league at the moment, but in their last away match, they did ship 4 to Man City. Just this weekend, they conceded 3 to Nottingham Forest, and Forest aren't a very good open play attack, but I'm expecting Eddie Howe to pull up at Anfield in the low block bus. I don't think he's naive. He'll have a defensive plan as well for Salah and Trent, but Joe Linton's injury does boost the appeal of the fixture. His presence is a big miss physically, and in my opinion, he's the best defensive double-up asset Eddie Howe's got in that Newcastle squad. Arsenal at home this season, we saw Eddie Howe play Gordon on the right, where he did that amazing cross to Isak, and Joe Linton left wing, so that Joe Linton could double up on Bukayo Saka alongside Lewis Hall. Now, Howe could switch Gordon and Murphy flank so that Murphy just does that job. He could drop Murphy and play somebody else on the wing who can do that job. He could play Gordon on the right and opt for a more defensive-minded player. He could even keep Gordon on the Trent flank, and maybe Lewis Miley in the midfield stays closer to Lewis Hall. We don't know how Newcastle is going to set up in relation to Salah and Trent's flank, but if you expect Eddie Howe to not double up on Salah, allowing him to access the kind of space he found at St. James's Park a few months ago, well then in that case, this fixture becomes much more appealing. Game day analysis is usually very helpful in midweek rounds, and even though Cole Palmer's only started 4 times in midweek home games, he's returned in all 4. The size of his profile makes him ineligible for full comparison, but he is averaging a 1.5 GA per start return rate. In this category, his dataset has been really consistent, and 100% does highlight that Palmer has serious ability to return explosive points in midweek rounds. Salah and Son have the lowest blank rate in terms of haul potential, Salah's double-digit percentage ranks first as well, so it's definitely between him and Palmer, and those two are cruising at the top. The most informed premium midweek performer is Foden. He's averaging 9 points in his last 5 midweek away starts. I always value form as a crucial factor in captaincy, but Phil's dataset as a whole just isn't very promising compared to the two main options. With all four playing in the evening, let's take a look at game time performance, and this time, Cole Palmer's profile is eligible for full comparison. His prospects continue to rise. From 8 starts in late night kickoffs, Palmer has produced double digits in 50%, which is the best explosivity on offer. His return rate hasn't budged from 1.5 GA per start, and his average points as well as his blank rate indicate a positive bias towards evening fixtures in the league. That's something we learned last season as well. Palmer scored 2 hat-tricks in late night home games. And yes, I do think that those 2 hat-tricks are slightly inflating his statistics, but I still think he does have that positive bias towards evening kickoffs at home, and that's something we should be definitely looking to target. It's definitely not a massive red flag in terms of the overperformance from those hat-tricks, but it just means that his return rate, his points average, don't read in too much to those stats. But no, he's got the positive bias. Salah and his stats in this section, they have dropped off a little bit. His numbers have regressed slightly in comparison to his midweek fixture numbers. Return rate has dropped slightly, same with the double-digit haul rate. However, Salah's form over the last 5 is into the high 8s. His midweek form had him at a 6.4 average, so Mo's also been enjoying evening kickoffs at home. Not much splitting these two. Heading into my rest assessment. For once, it's the Spurs player with the most rest heading into the round. Just the one day over the others, as Sonny's immediate turnaround is Saturday to Wednesday. The nice spacing contributes to why I think he'll get the full 90 against Man City. By the way, the weekend after Game Week 27, there's no Premier League fixtures. All clubs will have a few days off, and then the teams left in European knockouts will play next midweek. So a slight break in the schedule should mean minutes all round should be pretty easy to predict. However, the two main prospects this game week could get a few shaved minutes. I'm being more cautious with my predictions for both of them. Realistically, I only see Salah getting subbed early if Liverpool are leading by 2 or more going into the 80th minute, and that's possible. The same situation could happen with Cole Palmer, and he's probably even more likely for an early sub, but I don't think it's going to be before 80, and that's just because Chelsea are in such a bad moment right now. I think the likelihood of that happening, of the early sub happening, is low. 80 plus looks pretty secure for Coley, and if he's coming off early, you're likely walking away with some decent points, and the same can be said for Mo Salah. From a rest perspective, I do think Palmer has a slight edge because Salah played 90 last Wednesday, he played another 90 the Wednesday before, and he also played the weekend before that when all the Premier League teams had a weekend off. So he's played way more minutes in the last kind of 3 weeks compared to Palmer. And if anything, Salah should be a little bit more leggy, even though they have the exact same rest coming into Game Week 27. Foden's projected to play 90, but Man City have a 3-day turnaround as well, which is why Foden's holding wildcard captain spot on my Game Week 27 rankings. If you're new to the channel, you don't know what that is, it's basically the high risk, high reward premium captain, big gain potential, but a big risk you're taking. And obviously not many of you will have Foden, but even in the guys that you do have, if you have Foden, I doubt you're really considering it, but he's got a decent profile this week. And if Erling Haaland's absent again, I expect to see Foden take way more shots like he did against Liverpool just recently. Unfortunately, I doubt Foden takes pens, and without pens and set piece share, his profile needs to be flawless across all categories. That's just not the case this game week. In third, I've gone for Son at home to Man City. Spurs are on the up, and Son's had an extra day of rest over the competition. A problem with Son captain this year has been the unexpected early subs, the benchings, the injuries, but Tottenham's schedule doesn't point to any risk for those things happening in Game Week 27. Really, it's the fixture, because Man City just aren't as appealing as a Newcastle or a Southampton this week from a targetability perspective, so Son didn't really stand out either in any of the comparisons, so he just takes third place, but no higher than that. My Game Week 27 best captain is Cole Palmer, which means I am twisting off Mohamed Salah cap. Why am I going against Mo? First off, guys, remember, I'm not making this decision. I'm not saying doing my recommendations based off who's the safest cap, who offers the most game potential. No, none of that. My decisions are made based off who I think is going to score the most points in my heart, and who's got the best, captaincy profile week in, week out, who's got the best green to red flag ratio. And for me, Palmer's profile is stronger than Salah's in 27, but it's very, very close. I believe Newcastle's probably the tougher fixture to target compared to Southampton, who look just so weak. In the last 3 weeks, Mo's played around 200 minutes more than Palmer, with Liverpool having, 3 to 4 days before playing again and again and again. So I do think those minutes will add up at some point, and it could be this midweek against Newcastle. I also expect Trent to get the early sub. Slot said in a recent presser that Trent can't play 90 every 3 days, which makes, 20, 25 minutes of Kwanzaa right back a realistic possibility, and that does impact and regress Salah's overall potential, even though it's not the biggest red flags. And I don't think he has many big red flags. He's still a great captain this week. The decision always lies with you, so don't just copy my results. If you think Salah's the guy, then go for him. And by the way, if you're somebody who looks at, what your risk appetite is, you want to go safer as the option, then Salah is definitely the choice because most people will go for Salah cap. I'm expecting Palmer's EO to be above 100% in the engaged ranked tiers, and I get it. I get why. This Southampton team is vulnerable. Both of the starting center backs injured, Ugochukwu ineligible, which means likely an out of position player somewhere in that back line. And even though Chelsea have been rubbish, they've got more than enough quality to win comfortably on Tuesday. Palmer's historical record as a flat track bully and his record against promoted teams at home is really good so far. His points history in the late night kickoffs are really good, explosive. His midweek performances have been consistent, and all factors point me towards a Cole Palmer cap this week. I'm posting this a little bit early, so just a reminder that these rankings can change based off new info from press conferences, injury updates, leaks. If anything does, switch, I will be posting my updated rankings on all social platforms before the deadline, so make sure you're following at least one, and make sure you keep an eye out for that. If you've enjoyed this one, then show some love by dropping a like on the video if you're new around here, and if you want to stick around, hit subscribe, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace.